And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome on into today's live stream coverage of the March 6, 2026 severe thunderstorm and potentially tornado outbreak across the Great Plains, Midwest, and the Ozark Valley. So, with that said, let's dive on into what we're looking at across the board right now. At the moment, we have multiple severe thunderstorms and even a tornado-warned storm ongoing just east of Oklahoma City and south of Tulsa. We have that one tornado warning storm we're going to dive into here in just a second. Right now, though, it is in the Muskogee Nation area just to the west of Henrietta, pushing off towards Amulgee here in just about, say, about 15-20 minutes. We'll look at that here in just a moment. Right now, we'll look up towards Kansas, where we have another risk highlighted, and we have a couple of cells that are starting to look like they have the potential to go severe warned, if not tornado warned, here in the next hour or so. We have multiple chasers already up here watching over this, so we'll get a better idea of what's happening here in the next 30 minutes or so. And we'll take a look off towards the Midwest and off towards Michigan, where we've already had several tornadoes touch down today. We had one particularly long-lasting supercell that is now winding down as it moves towards Jackson, Michigan. But over the past 2 hours or so, it has produced several tornadoes as it moved across southern Michigan out from northern Indiana. We'll give you a better look at what that was like. We have had damage reports confirmed in towns such as what was this one down here? It was Edwardsburg. We had one just north of there. Three Rivers took a direct hit, and Union City had some damage as well. We have also a video circulating on social media of a woman driving parallel to the tornado like she was trying to intercept it. It was a little interesting to say the least. But at this time, this storm is falling apart and currently moving out of a more favorable atmosphere. Temperatures where it is right now are currently sitting in the 50s, and I don't anticipate this to be severe warned too much longer. With that said, though, we do have a couple more severe storms around the Chicago and central Illinois area. We have two line segments, really, I just want to talk about briefly. One up here in Chicago, where we do have some damaging wind gusts likely with a couple of these cells. You can see velocity signatures up here just in the 50 to 60 mile an hour range. Not too heavy at all, but just watching in case we could get a couple of severe wind gusts outside of Gary, Indiana, of all places. And then down here towards Bloomington, Illinois, and Lincoln as well, we're looking at a couple of severe thunderstorms still down there. Just mainly watching those damaging wind gusts once again. 60 miles an hour, not too much in the way of hail with this particular storm system, but we're going to monitor it nonetheless as it moves off to the east. Now let's take a look back down at our main threat right now across Oklahoma that is currently developing and growing stronger by the minute. This is where we're going to be spending a lot of our time between here and up in Kansas, southeast Nebraska, and southwest Iowa, as well as western portions of Missouri. Let's get an analysis started on this Henrietta cell. I want to get a general gist of what's going on there. Right now it's kind of in a radar hole, so it's going to be a little difficult to see exactly what we're looking at, but it does look like we do have a little bit of rotation couplet just a couple miles outside of Henrietta. This is currently moving off towards the town of Amulgee, and there is no confirmation of any tornado touchdown at this time. We'll take a look at the storm relative velocity, and we can note there is indeed a weak velocity signature. And at the time, we can also see with red winds showing outbound velocity from the radar, green showing inbound, it is indeed a cyclonic storm. So we will be keeping an eye on that in particular as it moves off to the north. I'm pretty sure if this thing takes a more easterly path and just goes to the east of Milwaukee, we'll have a better chance of a tornado actually touching down with it. And then there are several other storms that are starting to touch down in the Oklahoma City area. This complex just to the east near Shawnee and a couple of these other small towns are starting to look like they could be making the eastward turn needed to really support tornadogenesis, especially this one heading towards the town of Shroud. Go ahead and take a look at velocity on that. We'll go ahead and actually bring up dual reflectivity as well. Show you two different perspectives. Not really much in the way of velocity at this point for any severe thunderstorm development. However, it is worth watching because it does look like it is trying to get a little bit of a hook echo going. We can see it has the nice standard supercell V shape, and it is starting to have a little bit of curve to it. Definitely an inflow notch into this southwestern portion of the storm. So we'll be keeping an eye on that to go tornado warned over the next few minutes as well, if conditions are still favorable for it to do so. We also have a couple of other cells still trying to fight their way into existence on the south and west side of Oklahoma City as well. I want to take a look at this one that's about to head, ironically, into more in Oklahoma City itself, just out towards Chickasha, moving to the northeast. This one currently is looking more like a hail threat and strong wind gusts at the moment, but we'll take a look and see if anything is on radar. No, we we do not currently have any sort of velocity signature to worry about, so this is purely just hail and damaging winds at that point. I'm expecting we'll probably be seeing the same for this Pauls Valley cell as well. Yeah, nothing really in the way of concern. No, actually, might want to start watching the south side here, because if we go over to velocity, you can see just a peak down here on the velocity. However, everything is so far away from the radar site. Take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. We'll have to wait and see how it develops. Also just need to keep an eye on a couple of these other cells that, even though they're not severe warned, you can still go tornado warned, flick of the fingers. Like this cell here, just south of Spring Hill, Lexington per cell, right off of, I believe that's I-35, heading south towards Texas. Yes. This one is starting to have a little bit of an interesting structure to it. And, it just went severe thunderstorm warned for that entire complex. No tornado possible tag on it yet. We'll wait and see how that develops coming up here in just a moment, though. Still has that nice northward motion to it. One thing I will say about these severe thunderstorms is, starting off, they all have a fairly uniform northeasterly motion to them. And what we want to happen, if we're going to see these storms go from more of a wind and hail risk to an actual supercell thunderstorm capable of producing tornado, we need to have them turn more eastward, northeastward. If they're able to do that, then we'll be able to see a lot better rotation signatures and strength for rotation to occur on these cells. So, given time, they should be making that eastward turn. We're here to watch it and see what happens. So, all right, we'll take a look back at what's happening outside Omugi at this point. Still kind of a weird looking radar signature. Not really the strongest cell at all, but we do indeed have a rotation couplet on it, weak as it is. And it does not look like we have any debris being lifted aloft by the cell yet. So we'll keep an eye on it. There's still plenty of opportunity for it to develop. We have a very favorable atmosphere across Oklahoma, Kansas, and into Missouri, Iowa, and southeastern Nebraska for severe weather, and especially tornadoes and large hail today. So we'll be keeping a very close eye on that moving over the next few hours into the overnight hours. Let's take a look off at Kansas real quick, because we do have a cell up here that is starting to look a little concerning right along the front. And it is really riding that front, actually. I mean, by now the front has probably slid down right about here, if not even closer to the cell, and I think it's probably going to keep along it for the duration of its life. Regardless, though, it does look like it's starting to take on a little bit of supercell shape. We have a little bit of a V structure here. Nice little inflow pocket here. We might actually get a little bit of outflow from this cell down here to help provide some of that moisture and energy to help this one get a little bit of rotation going. But we don't have any indication that it is rotating, at least to warrant any sort of warning quite yet. It does have a special weather statement on it for 40, looks like 40-mile-an-hour winds and 3/4-inch hail, so about penny size. We'll see, though. It has... All of these storms have plenty of time to develop, and the severe risk is really just starting. We have really multiple hours of coverage coming up as these storms start to look more and more severe worthy. Actually, that brings me to another point that I want to point out real quick. These storms further south, which have more of a potential to impact areas further east than not, they're starting to make that eastward turn, just barely starting. But it's something we want to see if they were to go tornadic at some point, which we're expecting them to. I mean, there's certainly enough energy in the atmosphere across Kansas as a whole for several tornadic supercells. If nothing else, supercells capable of producing very large hail going through the next several hours. We'll have chasers on the ground there too, so maybe we'll check in with them at some point and see what all's going on the ground with some of these bigger cells. Taking a look right back down to Oklahoma, the cell is... the Okmulgee cell is just starting to head into town. Really not too concerned about a tornado touchdown at this time. It is still a fairly weak-looking cell. I'm going to believe if it does end up making a little more of an eastward turn, it'd have a much better chance of producing any sort of tornadic potential. But regardless, it is rotating, so we'll keep an eye on it. A couple of other cells that are starting to look interesting out here include this interesting one, actually just south of Shroud, riding the I-44 corridor, heading up towards Tulsa at the moment. This one has some potential. I mean, if we look over at velocity, we can see we have at least a loose rotation couplet. Not a whole lot in the way of significance here, but I do think it is worth taking a look at. Right now we have kind of marginal winds. I'd have to average it out, but VROT is currently looking just under 30 miles an hour, so it is indeed holding a potential to intensify over the next few minutes for sure. I'll take a look and see how it's progressed. Definitely an interesting looking signature, to say the least. We'll keep an eye on it. We will keep an eye on it. As far as other cells in the area go, nothing is looking too exciting quite yet. Take a look back at radar. Our cell just to the south, or I guess just to the east-northeast of Lexington, Oklahoma. Looking a little interesting. And not too much to worry about, though, as it still has a fairly north-northeasterly motion to it. So we'll keep an eye on it as it turns and matures. Alright, let's take a look at this cell once more. We seem to be getting a little bit of a better velocity reading here. Inbound towards the radar is about 10 miles an hour, but outbound we're actually getting over 50 miles an hour, so we have a fairly interesting situation here where we could have rotation embedded in all of this rain here, but there's no clear signature at the moment to tell what actually is happening down there. We do have a chaser. It's on the ground, but it looks like he doesn't have all that great a signal at the moment, so we'll have to wait and see if anything does get reported. And of course, back out towards Okmulgee. Still nothing reported on the ground yet. So it's got a little bit of an interesting motion to it. Despite how forecasting models have trended storms eventually turning more eastward, this one itself seems to have taken more of a northward turn. Just trying to defy the norm, I suppose, but it'll be kind of interesting to see how this one matures. I'm guessing based on its current motion, it's eventually going to fall apart. At least the rotation will. It might recycle further down the road, but my bet is that this complex of cells is going to go north and merge with this greater complex as it moves northeast along Interstate 44. So we'll give it a little time to develop. A couple other cells are starting to pop up along this general area. Again, there is ample moisture, ample atmosphere conditions for these storms to go severe warned, obviously. I mean, there's a mass of them that already have. We're expecting plenty more to continue to grow stronger and increasingly severe through the evening hours. Let's take a look back north. Take a look at the Omaha radar, because there is a potential for some storms in southwest Iowa and southeast Nebraska later on. We have a tornado watch that is ongoing for this general area here, and then again further south in Oklahoma and into southwestern Missouri. I'll have to verify that real quick. Yes, so multiple tornado watches in effect. And just to give you an idea of what they're thinking, never mind, this doesn't have the data. Everybody's looking at increased confidence, or moderate confidence at the very least, of strong tornadoes being a possibility with this event. Which is why, again, I'm live covering this. Just has a bit of potential to do some weird things as we progress through the evening, so we'll monitor it and proceed accordingly. Alright. Since Oklahoma is our main threat, we'll probably stick down here for a little bit longer. Turn off these watches. Here we go. Okay. Okmulgee, you have a cell over top of you. It looks like the main area of rotation and concern is trying to occlude, if it hasn't already, off to the west of town. So I'd say your tornado threat is fairly diminished. However, still stay in your tornado safe space until the storm has passed by and the warning's lifted. So if any of y'all are in this risk area tonight, make sure that you have your safe place to go. This includes places like the center of your home away from any exterior walls or windows, or if you can, a basement or a storm cellar. Again, making sure we're towards the interior of the building. If we can get concrete walls surrounding us, that would be preferred, as those will hold up the best in a destructive tornado or even wind scenario. But make sure you have that safe place to go in case a warning is issued for your area tonight, because this is a fairly large risk area that we're dealing with today. I'll give you an idea of that here right now. And RadarOmega does not have a good look at that. Hang on. Here we go. All right. So anywhere in this kind of tan orange area, again going up, Oklahoma, Kansas, western Missouri, and into Nebraska and Iowa, or even northern Texas down there. This is the area where we're going to see the greatest potential for any severe weather, especially large hail and tornadoes. For the tornado potential, I'm especially watching this general area here in Oklahoma, southwest Missouri, excuse me, and northwest Arkansas, and then up here as well in Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa, Missouri. These are going to be the best areas to see any sort of development. And it's pretty early. We'll probably have cells continue to grow and taper off as we progress through the rest of the evening. But I think overnight especially is when we're going to have stuff really start kicking off. We'll take a brief look at this cell out towards Delphos, Kansas. It's got a little bit of an interesting structure. Nice little inflow notch, if you will, into the main updraft of the cell. Not a whole lot in the way of velocity, though, so still a fairly weak cell. Probably still moving quite a bit off to the north, if I'd have to guess. Yeah, still has that pretty far northerly movement. All right. Well, Mowgli, you're currently under the main downdraft of this cell. We're still watching to see, though, if it'll recycle in the next few minutes. I'm guessing it'll be fairly nonchalant, however, so. Yeah, it's pretty much done. That warning's probably going to expire whenever the storm moves out, so. We'll take a look at the other storms. Not closer to OK City in the I-44 corridor. These are ones I'm watching a little more closely to go tornadic here in a little bit. And actually, we'll take a look down at this Pauls Valley cell. It looks like we have a little bit of a hook there. I know we were looking at a little bit of rotation down there not too long ago. But it's fairly disconnected. I mean, the hook is down here where we'd see any sort of rotation potential. That's all the way over there. That's probably just gusts on the forward side of that. Not too worried about it. But elsewhere... Elsewhere, not really seeing all that much in the way of tornadic development. So it's kind of a slow start to the western area of this risk. Again, as we mentioned a few minutes ago, for those of you just joining it, actually, we do have another tornado warning out here in Michigan. It's kind of the storm risk that could for the day, I suppose. It's kind of in the middle of a radar hole. We'll see what we're looking at. These are cells that are currently moving into a not so favorable environment. Yeah, there's definitely a rotation signature on this cell, but I highly doubt it's going to keep going for much longer. But regardless, if you are in southern Michigan and somehow watching this, and outside northeast of the town of Hillsdale, you have a tornado warning. If you're in the town of Somerset or Moscow, Michigan, you should be heading for your tornado safe space right now. I don't believe there's any. Well, with how far this is from radar, it's kind of hard to tell if this is hail or if it is debris. I highly doubt it's debris, just based on the structure of this cell in particular. It looks more like it would be hail falling, if everything. Yeah, excuse me. But still, it's tornado warned. It is a hazard. So anybody in that area, please do take cover. And just like that, the Okmulgee cell has fallen apart, essentially. It is no longer tornado warned. But we do have a new tornado warned cell right along the Interstate 44 corridor. And this is one we've been watching for a few minutes. I figured it would go tornado warned at some point. Currently radar indicated. I'll take a look at the velocity signature. Okay, yeah, so quite a nice looking hook there, or not hook, excuse me. Radar couplet, yeah, actually that's a fairly tight couplet, and we're just a bit between radars too. We'll have a better idea of what the cell looks like as it moves closer to the radar. In Tulsa, right now it's been a fairly stout looking storm. I mean, has plenty of outflow from cells on the backside to help push the velocity of these cells. So we will certainly be keeping an eye on it, and it has established itself as a fairly consistently dominant cell. So I think this one is the first one with some real potential to put down a tornado in the west today. And its bullseye is Tulsa. So right now we have the town of, what is this, Stroud, Depew, yes, and Bristow. You guys are going to be in the main risk for this. It is increasingly growing much more favorable for tornadic development, and I think it'll probably end up putting a tornado down here in a little bit, given how open the atmosphere is. If it can get its act together, that is. And it looks like we do have a hail report coming in from Stroud as well. Whenever this storm is able to produce a tornado, it's probably going to be riding right along Interstate 44. So if you are anywhere between Tulsa and Stroud, even Sapulpa, you might want to consider getting off the interstate and either going south or going north to get out of the way of this cell. Because if it does put down a tornado, it's going to cross over 44 at some point. We'll keep an eye on it, though. Let you know if something does end up touching down. Again, it's a very nice looking radar signature there. Not too bad for this far out. Storm relative velocity even looks good. Alright. Just make sure, yeah, nothing is on the ground for this at the moment. But, should be noted, there is actually quite a bit of hail falling in this chunk of the storm. I mean, as we were just seeing on the correlation coefficient, which measures the size of particles of whether it be rain, hail, or even debris in the atmosphere. It measures the size of them with radar beams and sends it back to the radar, telling you roughly how big things are. And generally, the lower the value you have, the bigger the object is. For example, when we're looking at this, we have a 0.79 in there. Sometimes it's down as far down as 0.56. Yeah, that could be just an error in data, but 0.7 to 0.9 is significant for some pretty large hail. I wouldn't be surprised if we've got egg size or at least golf ball size hail in that cell itself. So if you're out in that area, I would suggest avoiding areas north of Stroud and north of I-44 for the next little bit at least. give an idea of what the storm's motion is like. So it has made that eastern turn, and it's still turning. Go ahead and give you an idea here. We'll want to do cell storm speed. Actually, how fast are these cells moving? 31 knots. So, okay, we'll put about 35. We'll draw it out to Spolpa, give folks an idea. Alright, so this is a fairly sparsely populated area of Oklahoma, which is a good thing. It's definitely a good thing, especially if this thing decides to produce a tornado. This is the cone of uncertainty. It's probably going to cross over Interstate 44 here in just a couple minutes, right to the southwest of Depew, or even in Depew. Depends on how it shifts. Spolpa, you're probably in the clear as far as this goes, but still keep an eye on it in case it shifts a little further east. I do want to point out area Sand Springs up there. You're probably going to need to start looking for shelter if you're watching. Make sure you get all your supplies ready, because it's probably going to be at your door in under an hour, if I'd have to guess. Alright. Might have a new scan here in a second. Still nothing showing up as far as debris, which is good. Go ahead and take a look. Never mind, it's not working. Alright. As far as the other cells go in the Oklahoma City area, what's pushing these, by the way, is a fairly evident dry line that has pushed through Oklahoma City at this point. It's helping storms generate and push them off to the northeast at the moment. But as this dry line progresses and pushes, we're likely going to see these storms become a little more tornadic and supercellular over the next couple of hours. So, excuse me, allergies are starting to get fairly bad here in southern Kentucky where I'm at. So, if I'm clearing my throat a lot or I sound froggy, that would be why. Alright. Give me just a second to look at a couple things, get caught up. a look north real quick. I just want to check on these cells up here, just in case something decides to do some funny things. And we do have a little bit of a cell starting to really pick up pace outside of Salina, Kansas. Not tornado warned or anything quite yet, but it's got potential. Let's see if it makes an eastward turn. Nope. Still continuing right along the front. If these storms can't break off the front and push a little further east, then they're going to have a really hard time going tornado warned. That might be the biggest thing inhibiting severe weather development in Kansas and even further north. If we can get that shift, it'll happen. It'll happen pretty widespread, but until that happens, we're not going to see all that much. So for the moment, Tulsa is absolutely the biggest thing. Look at this beautiful looking hook echo. I gotta say, this is quite a nice looking cell here. We have a very generous hook echo into the cell. Nice inflow notch, classic V-shaped supercell, leaving a little bit of a RFD surge on the back end. What a gorgeous looking storm. We'll take a look at the velocity signature. Fairly tight couplet, not too impressive, at least not yet. Still got plenty of time to grow, but it's certainly capable of producing a tornado. And we are not seeing anything yet on the correlation coefficient that would signal a tornado on the ground. And this is right, at this point, this is passing right past Depew, just to the west of Depew at this point. Not likely any tornado on the ground. If you are on the Interstate 44 or just outside of Depew and even Bristow, you might want to consider pulling over, getting off, or just trying to get south away from this thing, as this is likely an intense supercell, and it's probably going to continue to get stronger from there, given how open the atmosphere is out ahead. Now, these storms out ahead actually have me a little concerned, because if they continue on their northeasterly trajectory, and this one keeps going, eventually they're going to merge, and they could provide a little bit of extra energy, but at the same time they'll likely also be sucking some from the atmosphere at that point. That might be a bit of an inhibitor for additional development of this Stroud-Depew storm. Now, if they die off, it'll be even more interesting, but we'll take it one piece at a time. Alright. Let's take a look at a couple of other cells in this developing line still. There are multiple contenders that could potentially go tornado warned here in a minute. Last I checked. Already, this little area right here is catching my eye. Let's take a chance at it. Looks like it's probably just a downburst within these cells. Got a couple opportunities for some weak rotation. I'm not seeing anything alarming by any means. Man, this southern cell is doing some funny things. I'm pretty sure that's an error. I don't think that's a rotation signature quite yet. It might be, but it doesn't have all that much oomph to it, and it doesn't have the right structure, at least at the moment. It could go severe warned. I mean, or not severe warned, it already is, but tornado warned. Keeps trying to produce a hook. If you give it an eastern turn, it'll surely do it, though. It's a good tail end Charlie. For those of you who don't know, a tail end Charlie is the cell at the very end of a line. So in this case, this one out of all of these. Since they've got the sky to themselves, they can sometimes have a little more energy and be a little more long-lived than the northern ones embedded in the line. Not all the time, but can happen. Alright, we just got another scan for Depew. Looks like the storm is currently right overhead of Depew, with a very nice rotation couplet. This might be impacting Depew if it is on the ground. 60 mile an hour inbound, 17 outbound, so VROT's roughly in the 70. No. Hang on, let me math my way through this. Hang on. Roughly in the 40 to 50 mile an hour range, yeah. Which is certainly enough for a tornado to touch down. Relative velocity is still relatively interesting couplet, and of course the correlation coefficient. Just looks like noise at this point. It's kind of hard to tell. Yeah, not really seeing all that much. We'll just check. Yeah, I don't think there's any tornado on the ground, or if there is, it's not showing up on radar, and it has not been reported, at least yet.
Chase today, this is gonna be like
no visibility here, so for anybody who's wondering, this is Storm Chaser Freddie McKinney. He's been in the game for a while. But no visual on anything yet. I think this cell does have a very good potential to produce a tornado, though, given it is increasingly turning east. Again, that's typically what we like to see for tornadic supercells, and this one certainly has the oomph and the structure to do it. Let's see if we get any better data. Still nothing on the ground. That's good. Still a pretty gnarly looking signature, so we'll keep an eye on that. As far as I'm aware, there aren't really any other cells ongoing at this point. Nothing out east. Nothing up there. Alright. We'll take a step back briefly and go look at our satellite view of everything. So, of course, we have our main complex of cells here in Oklahoma. We have some convection across Missouri as well that I'm expecting to remain fairly marginal in severity, at least for the time being. Might have a wind risk and perhaps an isolated tornado risk as we move further to the northeast. I'll keep an eye on that, but at the moment I think we're in a fairly marginal risk of anything like that developing. And we'll take a look further north. We do have a fairly elevated cumulus field across northern Kansas into southern and southeastern Nebraska, but really still not a whole lot in the way of severe storms ongoing in that region. They're having a bit of a difficult time starting. Let me see if I can find the reason behind that. Give me a second. Yeah, so there's still a little bit of convective inhibition that is lingering from earlier today in that area. That's likely the reason why we're seeing such a struggle to get these storms to develop. Gut's telling me it's probably going to take a couple hours for those Kansas cells to really get going. Alright. Set back down to surface level at this radar. Get another idea. Alright, so the Pew storm, the Pew, you are in the clear at this point. Nice to notice a little bit of a bounded weak ecoregion here. Actually, 2 BWERs. A little interesting. And the couplet is still fairly strong in this one. Alright. At this time, it doesn't look like there is a tornado on the ground. An idea of exactly the motion of the cell. It looks like it's still moving generally toward the west side of Tulsa. We'll keep an eye on it. I wouldn't be surprised if this thing tries to push a little further east as the dry line continues to catch up. Well, thinking about it, we'll go ahead and take a look at the rest of the area. And nothing really catches my eye shy of the Shawnee cell again. But it's fairly messy. Yeah, there's not really much going on there. Okay. Actually, there's a bit of reflectivity coming off of the radar site for Oklahoma City. Has a little bit of structure to it, but I'm not seeing too much in the way of rotation. Probably just some downdraft gusts within that cell. Not much to worry about. We do have a new severe thunderstorm warning for Cleveland, Oklahoma, and Hominy, Oklahoma. Yeah. Mostly for some wind and quarter-sized hail. Not too much to worry about, though. Oh, and look at that. Off in the north, we have our first severe thunderstorm warning. We'll get you a view of that here in just a moment. Just a cell riding along the front. It's going to be making its way off towards the lake area fairly quickly. Excuse me. I'm guessing it's likely a cold core cell. Increased hail risk with it. Probably not going to be able to survive for too long, but still worth watching. And we also have a few cells down in the Nebraska City, Sydney area, right along the I-29 corridor. Don't think there's anything to do with them. It's just some scattered convection. This will probably be the kickoff for a squall line to develop later on in the evening, further off toward Des Moines. So we'll keep an eye on that. As far as these cells out in Kansas go, they are starting to get a little more organized. I will say that. They're starting to look a little more impressive and finally do some things. With this slower cell here especially, that merger, that might be enough to start pushing things a little further off to the east, but I doubt it at the moment. I think it's going to take the front moving to actually get these things to start progressing. Man, this one up here just absolutely took off to the north. Yeah, no potential for a tornado on that one. All right, let's take a look back south. We have some chasers on this Depew-Barstow cell. It is officially crossed over I-44 and is currently making its way northeast. It's going to be moving parallel to the interstate for quite some time. Man, I will say, this is one impressive looking radar couplet. Again, green is wind's going toward the radar, red is going away from the radar, showing a fairly nice rotation couplet, fairly strong indeed. It's not as tight as it could be. You can notice there's a pretty significantly weak area there, so a fairly broad circulation, but nonetheless, it's pretty strong. If we end up getting that to tighten up, I think we'll actually have a tornado on our hands. So 70 inbound toward the radar, 20 mile an hour outbound. Fairly decent rotation couplet. It's enough to be concerned about, that's for sure. Go ahead and take a look at some chaser coverage. Very, very well defined wall cloud out in that area, but no tornado on the ground quite yet, so that is a good thing. New scan now. All right. It is increasingly growing stronger, and actually, with the relative velocity, we can see this is just starting to tighten up even more. All right, this will be a... I'm fairly certain this is about to put a tornado on the ground, folks. All right, we'll check motion real quick. Still moving. 31 knots. The reflectivity signature on it is not quite as nice as it was before, but it still has a pretty good rotation signature on it. Especially watching ride along 44. If you're in Barstow, it's going to be moving just north of you here over the next few minutes. Just waiting for an update for this cell. Get a ground look once again at this thing. Blocked by trees, but we do have a fairly impressive view at what is likely a very significant wall cloud with this cell. Man, look at that bounded weak echo region. Nice little donut hole in the center of the reflectivity. And there she is, ladies and gentlemen. That might be a wall cloud, actually. Yeah, this might be a lowering, folks. This might be touching down here in a few minutes. Yeah, that looks like a tornado, ladies and gentlemen. Looks like we have a tornado on the ground outside of Barstow, Oklahoma. Again, we'll get you a look at that. Very, very stout looking velocity signature. Yep, this is chaser confirmed tornado on the ground. So if you were anywhere north of Barstow, if you're in the little hamlet of Bellevue, this is coming right for you. You might want to consider taking shelter, because this looks like a fairly decent sized tornado on the ground moving right towards you. Here, we'll go ahead and just keep that tagged up there. There you go. Very stout rotation signature indeed. We'll see if we can get any sort of drop. I mean, just looking at this thing on video, it's possible that that's already going multivorticity. And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. First tornado of the day. Out west, at least.
That was interesting timing.
Alright, so we'll go ahead and track this out timing-wise for y'all. Give you a better idea of what we're expecting with the track of this cell. Take you all the way out to Tulsa. Sand Springs, you're going to be the next big target for this, about 42 minutes or so. So you've got a little bit of time. I'd suggest, if you can, start getting stuff ready to go down towards your tornado shelter, as this does look like a cell is going to be fairly long-lived, potentially producing multiple tornadoes over time. So if you can move towards shelter, that would be highly advised at this time. And in Tulsa, you're going to be the biggest target in this path. There is a fairly decent chance that it moves to the northwest of you. However, wouldn't take any chances. Start getting some supplies, if you can, down towards storm shelters. You all know the drill. This is your country. But regardless, we do have what looks to be a large confirmed tornado on the ground. This is, again, just to the north of Barstow, moving about 35 miles an hour to the northeast. If you want to go see this chaser stream directly, his name is Freddie McKinney. You can find him on YouTube. Now we do have another update. Velocity should be following behind that fairly closely. For those of you that are just joining us, I'll give you an idea of what the life cycle of the cell has been so far. Very nice rapid development to the north of Depew and Bristow, and at the moment, at least, there is a tornado on the ground just to the north of Barstow. There's our new reading. Fair bit of interference in the middle of all this, but as we know, there is indeed a tornado observed on the ground. There it is, the official observed tag. Relative velocity is very nice with the cell indeed. And we have the correlation coefficient drop right here, indicating that there is debris indeed being lofted into the atmosphere by this tornado. Current time is 5:25 Central Standard Time, and we have a tornado on the ground. All right. Take a look at the broader image just for a second. Regain our bearings. We still have multiple severe thunderstorms to the east of Oklahoma City, around Shawnee. None of them look as though they're trying to do all that much in the way of tornadic activity. They're just kind of riding the dry line at the moment. And nothing much for the time being. Our main risk right now is going to, of course, be that tornado on the ground just to the north of Bristow, Oklahoma. Sapulpa, I would expect you to be in the clear unless we take a fairly significant eastward turn, but still be on guard. If this does turn, you will be a town to really watch for in the way of tornado potential. Alright. We're getting some more data now. It does look like the velocity is starting to weaken just a bit on the cell, but it is still, of course, a fairly significant rotation couplet, to say the least. Here, we'll see if this works. Just move my mic, so hopefully we'll have a little bit of sound with that. Yeah, it looks like this is a cell that is going pretty fairly rain-wrapped, which is especially dangerous as it's heading into a heavily populated area here in the next half hour to 45 minutes. I'm curious. So this is a fairly elevated storm top. I mean, we're looking at, even for this time of year, 45,000 feet. It's fairly high given the cold pool aloft in a lot of these situations, which can be an inhibitor as well as far as storms getting up to their maximum height and reaching the tropopause. It's a very strong storm, and I mean, as we just saw with the tornado on the ground, it's definitely one to contend with. And National Weather Service did just issue another tornado warning for areas including Sapulpa, Sand Springs, and Tulsa itself. If you're in Tulsa, now is the time to really consider moving to shelter. Sapulpa as well. We have an ongoing tornado on the ground. If it lifted, which it might have, we're absolutely seeing a recycling of the cell further south. About to get a new update here in just a moment. And here's our new update. Rotation signature.
Your mic's not working.
Hello, hello.
I'll listen to it.
Yeah. Apparently we're having microphone issues. So testing, 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 testing. If we're getting anything, much appreciated to hear it. Alright, let's see. So we did at least have a tornado on the ground for a few minutes there. Interested in seeing. We still have. Looks like it may have lifted, and there's not any sort of debris ball by any means currently on radar. And velocity signature has weakened quite a bit, so I'm guessing that the storm is recycling. Yes, indeed. There is a potential that it makes an eastern turn towards Sapulpa. Alright, let's see. Having a couple technical difficulties. Give me a second, folks. Alright, it appears that we're working, so we will continue on. Yep. Alright, so this cell is currently, at least that I've been able to see, the only tornado warned cell ongoing in the entire risk area. And it is currently trying to recycle. It's a little bit messy at the moment, but it's trying to recycle. And it's probably going to end up moving right toward or slightly west of Tulsa. Yeah, it's that main rotation area here that we've been watching that produced a tornado. Is still ongoing, but as you notice, it is fairly messy on radar as far as the reflectivity goes. At the moment, doesn't look like any tornado is on the ground. Again, we did have a brief touchdown for a few minutes at least, but at this time, tornado has lifted. Again, this is heading off towards Tulsa. Spolpa, you're currently in the warning. If this cell ends up recycling further south, you will definitely be a legitimate target of this thing. So if I were you, I'd be moving towards tornado space. Again, it's going to be interior part of your building, away from exterior walls or windows. If you can get down to a basement or storm shelter, I'd highly advise that. I know they're a little harder to come by in Oklahoma just because of soil and all of that. But generally you want to get as low down to the ground as possible and away from, again, exterior walls. Now I've seen it where 2x6s have gone through walls at about 120 miles an hour, stick through them like matchsticks. It's kind of gnarly. We want to avoid anybody getting impacted by debris like that. So heed these warnings. We've already had one tornado in this risk area. We're likely going to see a few others over the next half hour to an hour. All right? Go ahead and go over to a dual view. I want to get a idea of the reflectivity in real time. So it seems like her rotation is entirely rain wrapped right now, which is kind of odd. I'll allow it, but kind of odd. I'm waiting to see if we get in these inflow notches here something else to develop, especially on this southern one. I mean, there is a little bit of clearing right here, like there could be a window for something to develop, but we'll have to wait and see for a bit. We just had a tornado warning, or a tornado, not warning, but a tornado report out of Barstow, northwest side of Barstow, yes. So that tornado that we saw on video just a few minutes ago, that is exactly what we're looking at. At the moment, though, storms are actually overall going fairly semi-discrete. We have a couple of complexes ongoing, and we have a pretty significant portion of Lincoln County out of power at the moment. Probably from these severe storms in Stroud and Chandler, those general areas. Shawnee, you're still under a severe thunderstorm warning, but at the moment, doesn't look like there's too much going on in the way of potential rotation. However, there is a little bit of inflow into your system there. Worth watching, but not a concern right now. I'd say there's a better risk off towards Stroud. Yet again, a second storm coming up right behind it. Might have a little bit of a weak rotation signature. I wouldn't be surprised if that goes tornado warned here in a minute. But of course, the main threat is this Tulsa and Sapulpa storm, which at the moment is still ongoing. We're still looking at the center of this rotation being somewhere in the middle of all this rain. So this is likely a very well rain-wrapped tornado, meaning that if you are caught in it, you're not going to be able to see it. I'd highly advise anybody in this warning area to take shelter. We've already seen one damaging tornado touchdown. We're likely going to see several others with this cell in particular. It's only 5:40, folks. This is a threat that's supposed to go on for several hours longer. I want to take a quick look off to the north in Kansas. I want to see what all is going on there. And actually, we've got a new cell that's popping up just north of Minneapolis, Kansas, which is north of Salina, Kansas. That's that merger from a while ago. It's starting to gain a little strength right along the front, which has stalled and has become stationary boundary at this time. There's potential, given its eastward turn, that this could go tornado warned here in a little bit. Not a whole lot in the way of velocity at the moment on this cell in particular, but it is worth watching. We did have a fairly stout cap in place earlier, so I want to keep an eye on that. And we'll go ahead and look over here towards Omaha, Council Bluffs area in southwestern Iowa. A couple of those convective cells have really kicked off in the past half hour. A couple of these stronger cells could go severe warned at some point down the line, and I think this is going to be overall the beginning of our squall line that'll develop later tonight. That will carry with it the greatest potential for some damaging wind gusts, especially after about 8 o'clock or so. So we'll go ahead and go back down to our tornado warned storm outside Sapulpa, excuse me. And right now it looks fairly interesting. This is one of the messier storms I've seen. I didn't quite anticipate these being so precipitation heavy. A little interesting. Doesn't look like there's any tornado on the ground at the moment, and we've still got a tornado observed tag on it, so it's possible there's something in there. It's just not causing any damage. There still is a velocity signature. Anytime there's a velocity signature like that and has a history of producing, decent chance it's going to produce. So we'll go ahead and get a map out of what exactly we're looking at track-wise for this cell, and it looks like it's tracked even further north than previously anticipated. Sapulpa, I'd say, unless you're looking at a direct east shift in the next 2 frames or so, you're probably not going to need to worry about this tornado warned storm as much. I'd start looking at the storms behind it for a better potential. However, if you're in the town, the hamlet of Lotsie, and then of course Sand Springs, this is still a very real threat for y'all. Sand Springs, you're in this tornado warning. I'd suggest that you move towards your tornado safe space at this moment. This is likely going to be a significant storm regardless of the tornado on the ground. I mean, we've had already confirmed hail reports over an inch in diameter, and we're likely getting hail up to golf ball size in it right now, just based on the correlation coefficient drought. definitely something to keep an eye on hail-wise, but of course the tornado is going to be our primary threat. Give me a second, folks. I'm going to get myself a drink. My throat is already going hoarse. I had a tonsillectomy a few months ago, and it's still giving me some issues sometimes, so bear with me for a second. All right. Good old root beer. All right. So at the moment, we've only had one confirmed tornado on this western risk. Current time's 5:45 Central Standard Time. Which, by the way, don't know if folks have really realized it, but we're switching over to daylight savings time this weekend, Saturday, 2 o'clock in the morning for Central Time. You're going to be switching over to daylight savings time. So get ready. It's the nasty transition where we lose an hour of sleep. So make sure you're getting to bed a little earlier. And, all right, with this latest scan coming out of the Tulsa radar, it looks like we have a little bit of a reformation starting to occur. A new hook echo with this cell. Okay. Velocity signature is still looking strong. We're probably going to get that updated here in just a moment. And all the chasers down here look like they're playing catch up at the moment. We're going to look at what Mr. McKinney is seeing with this. At the moment, it doesn't look like much of anything. Some pretty rapid cloud motion, but not much to look at this time.
So that storm that's currently going into Tulsa, there's another cell trying to, like a potential tornado producing right there. We're going right into Bristow, and so we might see a couple storms go through and impact Tulsa tonight.
Yeah.
Just as a warning for anybody who lives over there.
Yes, my good friend Peyton McFarland. He's not so much a friend; he's a coworker.
Coworker, yeah.
If you get that reference, you're funny. You've got to let Key and Peele. But anyhow, we do have another potentially tornadic cell lining up just behind the cell that produced the Barstow tornado, so it wouldn't surprise anybody to see this one go tornado warned as well. Again, you can see at the very least a weak rotation signature on that one. Of course, we're still actively monitoring the Sand Springs cell, but I'm fairly certain it is in the process of recycling. When it does recycle, we'll likely see another tornado touchdown, unfortunately, in a pretty densely populated area. So these are our two biggest things to watch at the moment. At this time, actually, at this time, we do not have any sort of confirmation of any tornado on the ground. The tag still says observed, but I'm fairly certain that at this point, nothing is actually on the ground and the storm is actively recycling. There we go. We have fairly obvious hook echo there. Getting a new scan of data. We'll see what we're looking at velocity-wise. Kind of just bring each other. Ooh. Little bit of a jump there, but here we go. So rotation is centered right on the nose of this couplet. Check the motion of it. Alright, so this looks like it's going to track, if it keeps on its current heading, just barely to the west of Sand Springs, which is good. It means it's going to avoid downtown Tulsa especially. We still have storms behind it that could cause some problems, but this is certainly our biggest risk at the moment. Take it one storm at a time, right?
That's as much as you can do.
I will say one thing that's probably limiting these storms from being a little more active is all of this convection out in front of the system. It's probably having quite a bit of impact on the amount of instability left in the atmosphere after those push through, which in turn is going to limit how much energy we can get into this cell in particular. That's why everything looks so messy at the moment. We'll see. It's starting to wrap around pretty nicely. So it definitely has that going for it. Excuse me for a moment while I adjust my gate clutter here just a little bit. Yeah, there's so much rain going on with this. Any tornado that touches down is likely going to be at least partially rain wrapped. So anybody out there chasing, be safe with this one. Storm motion is probably still in the 30 or so mile an hour range. We'll go ahead and time that out for you here. All right. Sand Springs, we got about 20 minutes before impact from this. And then Lefkoe Hill and the Post Oak Lodge and Retreat. You're going to be next in line. You're looking about 30, 35 minutes, I'd say. At this time, there's still no tornado on the ground, but we do have a fairly obvious rotation signature still ongoing. And as far as the cell out west goes that we were mentioning a little bit, it's possible that that is just entirely downdraft within the storm. If that's the case, then it is much less of a worry. Obviously, there's high winds occurring, and this is going through an area that was just hit by a tornado. So if you are in that area, if you're out and about helping clean up debris, it might be smart to seek shelter once again, just in case you get some heavy wind gusts. Could knock some debris that's loose even more so, and we don't want anybody getting hurt after the tornado's already passed. Take a look down south again just briefly while we've got a second. Ooh. All right, this Seminole, Oklahoma storm is starting to look a little interesting. I think it's trying to wrap around a little bit, get a nice little hook echo going, but it doesn't have the most notable structure quite yet, at least. Might have a little bit of surface level rotation, but doesn't have the structure needed for a tornado quite yet. Alright. So with the storm heading into Tulsa right now, Sand Springs especially, not a whole lot going on with it quite yet. There is still a bit of some noise, especially with the rainfall and ongoing, so it's a little hard to see exactly what all is going on within it. But I can tell you with some certainty, that there is no tornado on the ground at this moment. I'm fairly certain this cell is still trying to recycle. And doing so, it's going to take a little bit to actually get to where it needs to be. So, still got rotation, still got potential, but I think structure-wise, at the very least, it's looking weaker and weaker as time progresses. So unless we can get a nice bit of inflow into this of some raw, just some raw instability, it's going to be hard to get this thing to cook off another tornado in its current conditions. Bear with me while I look at the latest mesoanalysis across the region. Still paying fairly close attention to Kansas at the moment. A lot of the forecasting models earlier were calling for significant storm development by this time. And since there is a weak cap still in place over there, I think it's just preventing more storms from initiating. They absolutely have the fuel necessary to do everything. I mean, they've got plenty of instability. Check shear. They've got fairly decent amounts of shear. They've got better wind shear than Oklahoma does, actually. I think it's only a matter of time and a matter of the cap falling apart to where we'll see some enhanced development across Kansas and even Iowa. All in due time. All in due time. Head back down to Oklahoma. Still looking at this, tracking right towards Lotsey, actually. If you're in the small hamlet of Lotsey, just outside Sand Springs, I advise you take shelter because you're about to have a calm before potentially another storm. While it doesn't look like there's any tornado on the ground at this time, I've seen it before. They can drop like a leaf and fall. It doesn't take a whole lot once these things get what they want. And it is still a fairly notable rotation couplet with this cell in particular, so let's heed all the warnings that we have tonight. I'll step back for just a second while we're waiting on things to develop. New severe thunderstorm warning with a tornado possible tag has just been issued north of Seminole, Oklahoma, and east of Shawnee, Oklahoma. Let's go ahead and take a look. National Weather Service, Oklahoma City, is tracking this cell. I guess they're expecting it to really start taking shape as a supercell. And kind of for that general Okmulgee area once again. So Okmulgee, you're not quite done yet. Keep an eye on this cell. Might have some impact for you later. And we'll head off to the north just to take a peek real quick. We do have a severe thunderstorm warning in Iowa already. Golf ball sized hail is the threat. And of course we have that other severe thunderstorm warning, ongoing across a decent portion of the border between Kansas and Nebraska. What is this small town? It is Hebron. Small town of Hebron. You're in this. Doesn't look like you're going to see too much in the way of tornadic activity, however. I'd say for sure some large hail is possible. Yeah, fairly decent bit of hail possible with this cell in particular. Just keep an eye on that. We do have a couple of more cells starting to pop off down towards Salina and even off towards Junction City and Manhattan, Kansas. Heading off towards Clay Center. these are starting to have a little more potential to do some supercellular activities. They're certainly developing. It makes me believe that the cap is eroding, which is a good thing for storm development. It's a bad thing for everybody across Kansas, though. Not seeing anything in the way of velocity yet, which is a good thing. I'd expect this cell heading towards Clay Center to go severe thunderstorm warned here in just a little bit, however. It's not the strongest quite yet, but it has the potential to be pretty strong over the next about 30 minutes or so. And we have another severe thunderstorm warned storm outside of Joplin, Missouri. Take a look at that briefly. Just a kind of messy convective system out there. Mostly looking at maybe an isolated wind gust and quarter-sized hail with that cell in particular. And of course, we've got cell off towards Coffeyville, Kansas. Likely a hailer as well. So it looks like really our biggest tornado potential is still this cell outside of Sand Springs, and it really looks like it is trying to put a tornado on the ground still. That is a very impressive velocity signature here, actually. Very tightly wrapped around, and it has a lot more of a northern movement than you'd normally see from a tornadic supercell. Kind of suggests to me that it's going to dissipate fairly soon in the future, but it doesn't show any sign of it at the moment. Very strong couplet indeed. Doesn't look like there's any tornado on the ground either, so still watching it. If I had to guess, I'd say part of the reason it isn't able to put down another tornado quite yet is just because of the lack of, well, for one, instability, because we have all of this convection around here that's just eating up the available instability in the atmosphere, but two, the weaker wind shear is just not enough in the upper echelon of the mesocyclone to really get it rotating enough and get that whole updraft up-rotating to produce this thing. That'd be my guess. Could be wrong. Regardless, though, it still has a very great potential to produce a tornado in the next few minutes. So if you're in Sand Springs, Lot C, or even off towards the Post Oak Lodge and Retreat, you might want to consider taking shelter with this cell, as it is still quite strong indeed. This cell is starting to go fairly lopsided. It's losing a lot of its distinct hook formation, which will have some impacts. Might mean that it's going to try to reform. But we'll have to wait and see for a few minutes. Take a look and see what this chaser down here, Stormrunner Media, has to see. At the moment, not a whole lot in the wave structure. I believe that's a wall cloud out ahead of him towards the horizon here, but we don't see really all that much distinct structure. And again, it is getting towards dark out there, so it is going to be a lot harder to see anything on the ground at that point. As of right now, we do have a tornado warning for the city of Tulsa itself. still ongoing for Sand Springs. Um, it's possible this thing's taking an eastward shift, and if it is actually taking an eastward shift, this might put another tornado on the ground a lot closer to Sand Springs and Tulsa than we were originally thinking. Alright. Given what we know now, the storm is still wobbling quite a bit on its path, moving about 30 miles an hour, so we'll put nice nose down here real quick, kind of track it out up towards Sperry. Starting to potentially pick up speed a little bit too. If it shifts further east, it could be in Tulsa in the next 15 to 20 minutes. Sand Springs, you've got less than 10 minutes before it's at your doorstep. I'd suggest you take cover if you haven't already. Beyond that Post Oak retreat, you've got about 20 minutes or so. Turley, Sperry, almost 30 minutes for you all. Take a look at our velocity signature once again, and you can see it is, once again, actually really starting to wrap around. Quite a noticeable rotation signature for sure. And the storm relative velocity is very strong. Got a nice signature there, but no tornado on the ground as of now, which is a good thing. If we get a nighttime tornado that goes into Tulsa, that's going to cause a whole lot of issues for a lot of people. Even if it goes into Sand Springs, a subdivision of Tulsa, it's still going to cause a whole lot of problems, which it looks like it might. At least the western portion of Sand Springs, which it does look like we have a few subdivisions out there, so if you're in that area, Godspeed. Might get messy for you here in a few minutes. If the storm could ever figure out what it wanted to do, it's almost like the hook echo itself just stalled along 41st Street. The updraft is slowed down quite a bit. This is very interesting. Very interesting indeed. Still no tornado on the ground. Take a step back again, look at the broader picture, make sure we don't have anything else going on at the moment. Cells off in Kansas are still kind of meandering around, not a whole lot going on in the way of supercellular development quite yet. We do have a couple of cells to the west of Manhattan that are starting to have a little bit of a velocity signature with them. Nothing promising yet, though. I'd say some small hail possible in the main downdraft of this cell. And of course, we have severe thunderstorm warned cell off to the east of Omaha, just north of Red Oak. Golf ball size hill is the risk. Go ahead and take a look at correlation coefficient real quick, just to get an idea. We can see a nice little hail signature within the cell itself. Alright. Back down here to Tulsa. Still not looking at anything touching down. Still is just meandering right outside the metropolitan area. I'm curious what satellite's looking at the moment. Earlier we had those 3 main convective pockets. As night falls, it's going to get a little harder to see what all's going on, but it does look like there is potentially some more cumulus development down into the Red River Valley and DFW portion of Texas, but we still have that main system that we're watching along the Oklahoma-Kansas border. Also have, again, some concentrated storm development along the Kansas-Nebraska border, and again, a couple of cells off towards the western part of Iowa. But it's fairly quiet, actually, for what was potentially going to happen. The big show so far has been one cell out of southern... Here we go. There we go. Maybe we can do work there. There we go. Really, the main action has been this cell outside Tulsa and one cell in southern Michigan that produced a few tornadoes earlier in the day. It looks like we might have this cell finally moving into Sand Springs.